Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. This is a special edition of the show. We're totally up to date on the first 5 nights of action from World Tag League 2025. We're going to look at the standings and preview the week ahead. So with Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is a special holiday edition of Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. Full disclosure, we are pre-recorded today. Today's travel day and the holiday and everything like that. So we are pre-recording this. Unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to interact with you on comments like we normally do, but we certainly encourage you to leave any comments you have, any thoughts you have in the comments section, and any questions certainly we'll be sure to get to those. But Jeremy, I'm about to head up north, and so we're recording this. The good news is we have all the shows watched. They were nice enough not to book a show on Thanksgiving Day, so we were able to watch. Of course, that's not a holiday in Japan, but we were able to watch up to Wednesday, and we're ready to roll. World Tag League, maybe not world-beating shows, but not half bad so far.
Yeah, I mean, we're in that void between Thanksgiving where the Wednesday shows have happened and the Friday shows haven't happened, and you can just read between the lines that we're in the gap there. We're in that everything has slowed down in the world a little bit, and we found a little bit of time before we gather with our loved ones to catch up. Because, dude, if we waited another week to talk about all this stuff, we'd be in the weeds. We'd just be in the weeds. So,
well, between today and our next show, which will be at our regular time live on Thursday as usual, 5 more shows coming. 5 more.
I was thankful that they're looking at a show on Thursday of next week. It's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, that's not too bad. But I told you off the air, I've had kind of a wild week over here. And it's just one of those, everything seems to just kind of go sideways right before the holidays. You just kind of have to navigate whatever, that's happening. Everybody's fine. Everything's great. It is a reminder for me to be incredibly thankful for everything that I have around me. And got my family healthy. Everybody's doing great. So, yeah, I'm taking stock of it all, and in light of that, I can say the World Tag League is fine in light of all of that.
Yeah, it is. And there have been a couple of subplots that have made themselves apparent, including a twist on one we didn't totally expect, one we absolutely did expect, and we're going to cover all those as we go. So the format today, because there have been a lot of shows, and if we just kind of went through these matches, it would just sound like a bunch of names, barfing up names for an hour, and we don't want to do that. So what we're going to take a look at the standings, and we're going to go from the leaders down to the middle of the pack and end on the teams that are struggling. And we'll do that for Block A, then we'll do it for Block B. And we'll talk about the matches as they happen along the way. But I think the more intriguing thing is, more than any one individual match, is the overall story of each team as it makes its way through the tournament. And so we have 3 Block A matches completed for each team, 2 for Block B. And Block B will have its 3rd night of action on Friday. So for today, we have 6 points on offer for Block B, 4 points on offer for Block A, 3 matches, 6 points on offer for Block A, although none of them have 6. That one's a little more
short of halfway in the A block.
And then in the B block, 2 nights of action, so 4 points possible. And there are a few teams that are unbeaten in the B block.
It is kind of funny, you look at these 7 matches, and we've gone through, 5 nights, and all of a sudden we've got a couple of these shows under the belt. And December 8th is going to hit real quick. Once this weekend is over and the first part of these holidays hit, man, it's gonna be a race to keep up with these shows. And I don't know if I felt that way about these shows in the past, but I definitely feel like this is gonna be a little tough this year.
The other thing worth noting before we get into the weeds on this, the crowd's been good.
Oh yeah,
The
they're
crowds have been
willing it.
good on these nights. They've been not. There are a couple of buildings that aren't full, but those are the larger buildings. Other buildings have looked quite full, and a couple of crowds well over 1,000 in not enormous towns either. I mean, they've been in Tokyo, but there are a couple of small towns in there that drew very, very well. I think a lot of this is last chance to see Tanahashi, of course. But there is a little bit of momentum building for Wrestle Kingdom as well. I think Tana's probably the draw here and getting a chance to say goodbye to the ace. Nevertheless, has to be, again, a morale boost for the crew to look up and see a building that is mostly full and have, for the most part, been enthusiastic and not wild, but responsive.
Well, like the show when it went into 26th at Sendai,
Mhm.
some of those matches were not that good, but
No.
that crowd willed those matches to be better than what they were supposed to be. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think it was probably the Gorilla Maloney and Shingo Takagi versus Don Fale and King of Darkness Evil match.
Boy, yeah.
That was a match that happened. But if you were just listening to the crowd and had your eyes closed, like, you would think that match was fire.
Yeah, it was not fire, but you're right. The crowd was into it. So, all right. Well, let's take a look at these standings and see what we have going here. So, in the A block, I mentioned there are no unbeaten teams after 3 nights of action. 5 teams, though, are 2-1 and tied for the lead with 4 points. There's only one team, and it's the correct one, that is at 0 points. We talked about night 1 of this tournament last week. Night 1 had happened when we did the show last week, but here we go. It is Bishamon. Lost the first night, but are now on 4 points. Toru Yano and Bolton Oleg on 4 points. Desperado and Shuji Ishikawa on 4 points. That was a bit unexpected for me, but again, we're only 3 nights in. Yoda Tsuji and Gabe Kidd, 4 points. Evil and Don Fale, 4 points. So let's start with Bishamon, the team with 3 of these tournaments under its belt already. Of course, they won 3 years in a row. They took a loss on night 1. If you remember, they were upset on night 1, but they ended up winning their next 2. So they beat 2 teams they really should be beating. First of all, Chase Owens and Yujiro Takahashi. That just felt like a match you had to have going through. And Chase and Yujiro were never really a threat in this one. You just were kind of waiting for the Shoto. They hit the Shoto, they got the win, they got out, and that was fine. And then the next night, or not the next night, but the next block night, that would be night 5, the one that just happened. They defeated Toru Yano and Oleg Bolton in Wednesday's main event. And they had a couple of close calls in that one with some of Yano's shenanigans. I say this, though, Yano wrestled this match more serious than usual. There was a little bit of clowning, but less than you normally get from him. He wrestled them fairly seriously through most of it. There was the playfulness with the turnbuckle pad, but even that worked for and against Yano at various points. He did hit a double low blow at one point while the referee was distracted, just to tease the idea that they might score the upset here. But in the end, Toru Yano took the Shoto, and that was the victory. So that puts Bishamon pretty much where they should be, Jeremy. We mentioned last week, they're the one that needs to make the other teams all the time. So they took the loss in the first one. It's a little too easy to have them just cruise to 3-0 since they're always considered a threat. Puts them at 2-1 in contention, just like we expected, and probably where they ought to be.
They're the ultimate gatekeeper team, winning the tournament many, many times. You give them a couple of losses to teams that mathematically it works out. Taichi and Kojima, legitimizes them going out of the gate to get them a win over a classically great team in Bishamon. But eventually, they're going to lose to a team, and they're going to elevate that because they're winning so much and the cachet that they have behind it. And they're just keeping to build that cachet. You don't want to waste it now.
No.
They're probably going to go to the next round. I very much do not expect them to win this tournament, but I expect them to look very strong up to the point they're eliminated.
I mean, they're always an important factor in the tag team division for that gatekeeping role you mentioned. All right. So the other one is the team that always threatens to mess up the whole tournament. That's the House of Torture squad. Now, there are 2 House of Torture teams here in Block A. The correct one is threatening to mess everything up, and that's Evil and Don Fale. Now, these 2 haven't been a team in past tournaments, but this is the correct House of Torture team to threaten to get into the post-block play. They won their opener, but they lost to Suji and Kid when Suji and Kid hit their finisher, that lariat spear combo to beat Fale. It's not really the full Gene Blast, but it's a thing where Kid hits a lariat exactly as Suji hits the spear. They got Fale with it, pinned him. And in a match that was fine, really, actually not. It was one of the about as good as
you say that.
It's as good as you could expect. It's as good as you could expect a Fale match to be in this day and age, with his health issues, his size, everything else right there. But he did fine. And then Evil and Fale defeated Maloney and Shingo with a lot of House of Torture interference in a match that was not good. Not even Shingo and Maloney could fully save this one. Shingo and Maloney are always big effort guys, but there's only so much they can do. The ref bumps were mistimed. They looked pretty stupid, and it was not an effective House of Torture match, but they did get the cheap win over Maloney and Shingo just to make you think these guys might advance out of block play and keep us from having the good matches we were hoping for. That threat.
The explanation that I wrote in my notes will tell you everything that you need to know about this match. Togo used a ref distraction to throw powder in Shingo's eyes, followed by an everything is evil in a match that did not exceed expectations.
Yeah. And again, it was like the ref was working very hard to get in the way. Too hard. None of it looked natural. It's just like Marty Asami would just kind of wander over when it was his time for a spot, and they never really had a reason for him to be that close to the guys so he could be grabbed or knocked over. They just didn't bother to come up with a logical-ish way of doing it. It would just be a moment where, for no reason, the referee would just walk over close so he could either get hit or grabbed. I think I've talked about this on this show until I'm blue in the face, but they don't do this well. And it's my least favorite part of New Japan is these bad ref bumps and things.
Again, what is amazing is if you close your eyes and listen to this match on New Japan World, you'd think that it was a 5-star match.
The fans in Sendai were into everything today.
They were into everything.
Not today, on Wednesday. It was a Wednesday show.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there've been a lot of shows, folks. That's funny. After that, we had Suji and Gabe Kidd. They're on 4 points at 2-1. We mentioned that they defeated Evil and Fale the first night of the tournament. They picked up another win over Owens and Yujiro using the same combo. So they beat Evil and Fale in their second match. They lost their first match. That's the one where Gabe Kidd got pinned. They've won 2 in a row. So they lost on night 1. They beat Evil and Fale. They beat Owens and Yujiro. So they have been running through the House of Torture portion of the program. They're back up to 2-1, 2 wins over HOT teams, and then more difficult challenges ahead. I think as they go forward, Jeremy, we're going to see Gabe Kidd eat a couple of falls. I can almost guarantee you that Yota Tsuji will not be taking any pins on the way to the Tokyo Dome. So this is all on Gabe. And, they won the main event in that one and had to cut a promo. And, Gabe's promo was a little wacky. He had to carry more of it as usual. Tsuji says he got hit in the neck when he was wrestling Shingo. And when they wrestled Shingo, it actually cracked him in the voice box a little bit. And he had kind of a gravelly voice. So Kid had to cut a promo. And they're not all classics, are they? So anyway, Tsuji and Kid at 2-1. We expect them to be in the mix, but I think Gabe is probably going to take a couple of losses to keep them from advancing too far.
Wouldn't be too shocked if like the Yano match, they ended up in a count out.
Mm-hmm. Could be
something like that, where they just kind of have something like stupid, like get them to lose the match, but nobody takes a pinfall. Because they really don't want to pin Gabe too much either. Like, he's still a big star, and I imagine he's probably going to be maybe in that trios or that 6-man Rambo thing with a couple other Bullet Club guys. That's pretty much a great place for him to be at this point if they don't have any plans moving forward. So they're still very important, and they're still crowd favorites. So I kind of think that they're going to make it to the next round and then kind of lose. But if they were, it might actually be better if these two were squeezed out on tiebreakers and just kind of quietly didn't make it to the next round so that no one had to eat a loss at that point.
Another team that's 2-1, to my surprise, actually, is Desperado and Shuji Ishikawa. So they lost on night 1 when Ishikawa was pinned, but he looked a lot better on night 3 in Machida, which is another neighborhood in Tokyo, with his power moves, kind of overwhelmed Shingo and Maloney, and he hit a backdrop driver with the leg hooked to pin Maloney. That evened them up at 1-1 and was a pretty decent match.
I thought it was worth checking out.
Yeah, Maloney and Shingo knew how to sell for him, and they wrestled before. Shingo and Ishikawa actually met in All Japan's Champion Carnival a few years ago, back when Shingo was still a Dragon's Gate guy. So they'd met before, knows how to sell for the guy. Maloney's good at everything. So that evened them up at 1-1. Good match. Then on night 5, they got another win when Desperado went against the run of play by rolling up Satoshi Kojima when Kojima was kind of ruling the roost in the ring. The story has been that Desperado is working on a bad back.
Right.
And Ishikawa is trying to carry him. And so similar something to what Taichi and Kojima are doing, which we'll get to them in a little bit, where poor Desperado has to take the beating for the older Ishikawa to come in and get the hot tag. And this time it really looked like Kojima was on the way to a victory when Desperado kind of rolled him up out of nowhere. But that puts them at 2-1, and they're working fairly well together. Desperado, of course, one of the very best in the world. Ishikawa looked pretty stiff on night 1, like he wasn't moving very well, but maybe you just need to loosen up, because by the time they got to night 3 and 5, he looked fine.
He's fine. Yeah, he's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
With the whole finish of Desperado, the only thing that like gave me pause when it was happening is like we just had this sequence, and then Desperado just took the cozy lariat from Kojima, and he didn't get the pin, and then he went for it again. I'm like, wait, you just, and then he did the roll, like, oh, there we go. They kind of telegraphed it a little bit, but at the same time, it was all about just trying to get that story with Kojima and Taichi more than it was a story about Desperado in that match. So we'll get to that in a minute. But they're really trying to protect Desperado and not have him, like, they're allowing him to be the little man in these matches and get his like ass kind of handed to him, but he's not the guy that's the pin eater because he's so popular.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting.
Yeah. And it's a guest. I mean, Ishikawa can do that every once in a while. They won't job him out, but I think he'll be the guy that I think.
They're 2-1. They're clearly they're gonna lose a couple at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see them moving on, but yeah. And they don't need him to. Like, there's really no reason for Desperado to move into post block play in this tournament. That's not his story. So, but they're doing fine. They're absolutely doing fine. And in post match comments, Ishikawa still wants a singles match, which I think Desperado was pretty desperate to avoid. He's we'll win this, and then we're going to have our singles match. And Desperado says, we'll win this. Okay.
Yeah, once again, the word I would use to describe Desperado in New Japan Pro Wrestling is versatile. That guy can do anything and just be like slotted anywhere in the junior division and the heavyweight division, doing death matches. He can just kind of, he's a jack of all trades, if you will.
You can still make a case for him being New Japan's MVP of 2025, and he and Goto are the two choices, right?
He's been a guy who carried the promotion on his back with excellent matches and not even being put in a position to be on main cards of a lot of these shows and still delivering the best match of the season.
Well put. After that, we had Toriano and Bolton. They're at 2-1. So Bolton, they defeated Taichi and Kojima by hitting the kamikaze on Kojima. Just solid, straight-up victory right there. And that made them the only team at the time to win the first two matches. They were the only team on 4 points. Everybody else took a loss on either night 1 or night 3. But they were unable to make it 3 in a row. They fell to Bishamon in Wednesday's main event. As we mentioned, when Bishamon hit the Shota after some close calls with Toriano, coming near on some upsets, and Bishamon managed to stay away from Oleg there, keep him out of the ring. And so Yano and Bolton, another team that's probably going to win some and lose some. This isn't going to be the winning team in the tournament, but it's Bolton they certainly take seriously. They don't want to beat him very often. And Yano can take a loss or two in there, but they're a better team than I anticipated in this tournament thus far, just because Yano is doing slightly less clowning and a little more wrestling, and it's working for me.
You know what I think is interesting about this team is that their final match in the tournament is against Evil and Don Fale. And
could be the heroes.
New Japan does this sometimes where this is their kind of your get back at a guy. Oleg beat Fale, but dropped the title to Evil. And this kind of feels like an opportunity for Oleg to kind of ruin their chances of advancing to the next round with that match. Or, Evil could just reassert his dominance. But they're going to be consequential all the way to the last night of the program of the World Tag League. And so, I think that's good for them. I think it shows a sign of confidence that even though Aaron Wolf is in the wings, that they're still planning on using Oleg Bolton, Oleg Bolton, however you're nasty, I guess. I like that there's confidence there still that he is a part of the plan, even if he is not the main character.
All right. So let's take a look at the teams on 2 points. We've gone through the teams on 4 now. So here are the teams on 2. So we will begin with Taichi and Kojima. They are a team that is still playing off the story of not 100% getting along. Taichi, of course, one of the members of Kojima-gun when Kojima first came back from All Japan. Not long after that, however, Taichi turned on Kojima and went with Suzuki and became part of Suzuki-gun. So still some lingering resentment, but not from Kojima, despite the fact that he was the guy that got turned on. He wants to let bygones be bygones. Taichi, still a little cranky. But they got the opening night win, lost to Yano and Bolton. Taichi seemed pretty discouraged about it, and they were bickering a little bit during post-match comments, both after that one and after their preview tag the next day. But I mentioned that Kojima just kind of wants to put it all behind him. On night 5, they took another loss when Desperado rolled Kojima up, like we mentioned, after he dominated a lot of the match. And, of course, the story with this team is that Taichi has a bad knee. Similar to Desperado, again with the bad back, Taichi has the bad knee. So he's the one that sells and sells and sells and makes the hot tag to Kojima, which is probably the right dynamic for this team. Kojima's a little bit better in short bursts in that sense. And so after this match, though, after Desperado rolled up Kojima, instead of bickering with Kojima, instead of arguing with him, instead of walking out on him, Taichi shook his hand in the ring and kind of, touched him on the arm and almost like a that's okay thing. So it's running hot and cold with these two. We're not really sure if Taichi's totally okay with it. I think, Jeremy, this might go into a thing where Taichi respects him, but he's just not going to be warm to him. It's going to be more of a teasing each other back and forth thing, or maybe not even back and forth, more of Taichi just teasing Kojima about being an old man, and Kojima just kind of going along with it there, just kind of rolling his eyes at that. Maybe that's the story that they're going with here because they don't seem to be fighting.
It feels like Lethal Weapon to me, Riggs and Murtaugh.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Mel Gibson with the younger guy who's just a little bit of a loose cannon, and the older guy who's conservative / I'm too old for this crap.
Does anything, by the way, hurt more than realizing that we are older now than Danny Glover was then when he made the movie? That just wounds me.
But I've run into Danny Glover in real life a handful of times. Because I lived in Santa Cruz, and he loves to come to Santa Cruz. He's a total hippie, and he just loves the Santa Cruz vibe. So he's just he's in Santa Cruz from time to time over the last 25 years. First time I saw him was around the year 2000 when I was in college over there. So just a funny little anecdote about Danny Glover. But Yes and no. There's a number of things that are making me face my own mortality, Steven, including the fact that I was just starting college when Hiroshi Tanahashi started his wrestling career, and now I'm going to a show 26 years later where he is retiring. So, no, the lethal weapon part really doesn't hit hard, but it does lead to a greater scenario of, yes, my mortality feels much closer than it did 25 years ago.
There you have it with Taichi and Kojima. So that we'll see how they do the rest of the way. Again, that's probably not a team that's meant to contend. The other team that's on 2 points that I expect more from as it goes on, I think these guys are going to get some wins, and that's Shingo Takagi and Drilla Maloney. They had the opening win with that double Made in Japan move. We mentioned that last week. Then they were upset by Ishikawa and Desperado on night 3 when Ishikawa hit that backdrop driver on Drilla. Night 5, it took all the House of Torture stuff to beat him. We already mentioned that match. Not worth really going back and watching. Aside from the House of Torture thing, which didn't work, they've had good matches. The first 2 matches they had were good matches. These are always big effort guys. I expect results to come later. I think this is going to be one of the teams that sort of comes from behind and is a factor on the final day of block play at the very least.
I mean, they're threatening. There's a couple things to keep in mind here for me that I always think about with these 2 guys. They're so well liked by the fans that you forget that they're essentially the number 2 and number 3 guys in their stable. And they each have their superior in a lot of ways in this same category with them. And on that same night of final block play, these guys got to face Bishamon. And so you always just kind of you look at it with these 2 and you're like, oh, it's Shingo and it's Drilla and they have banger matches. I just don't see them being in any other position of just having banger matches and winning a couple and threatening, but with their trajectory and Bishamon being this gatekeeper eventually for the entire tournament, I don't like their chances of advancing, but I do like their chances of being one of the best performing teams in the whole tournament.
My prediction here is that Shingo and Maloney are not going to lose much at all, maybe not at all, until they face Bishamon. I think once that match happens, it's going to be there'll be stakes to it.
What do you think is the winning get-in point total? Is it 8 or 10? You gotta go 5-2 or 4-3?
I feel like in this block,
I think it's 5-2.
Maybe 5-2, yeah, 5-2.
Because I could see Shingo and Drilla getting to 8.
Yes,
trying to get to 10.
And if they get to 10, they will have beaten a team that has 10 and then move in. Yes, yeah.
So 5 seems like the sweet spot of winning your get in this tournament.
There's one more team in this block: Chase Owens and Yujiro Takahashi, and they are indeed a team having wrestling matches, and they're doing the jobs for HOT at the moment. They're 0-3. They aren't wrestling particularly well, but being the House of Torture team that can lose, they're serving their purpose in that, is that they're giving points to the other. And of course, they're probably going to get some upset that will be consequential in the end. But the good news is they aren't pulling any garbage where these guys are getting interference wins and things like that.
They'll win 1 or 2 matches somewhere along the way and kind of screw somebody.
I still can't tell if Chase is trying to be serious with his theme song or if that's supposed to be funny. Is that intentionally funny? His theme song's intentionally
funny? It's just bad, man. I came in here with this idea of I want to be kind to Chase Owens. But there were things that I saw that were just pause, wait, what the fuck? I think in the show on Wednesday with Kid and Tsuji, Tsuji took a tackle from Owens at one point and literally just dropped to the ground in a position of okay, I'm ready to take a headlock. And Owens fell down right after him and literally just looked, and time stopped for 1 or 2 heartbeats before Chase just grabbed him. And I was just
It's a weird miscommunication there.
Man.
They did seem to get deer in the headlights-ish there.
Like, that match was a contractually obligated match that happened. That's how I felt about that match. Like, it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't at the level of what everyone else is able to do in this tournament. And for all the effort that Chase Owens is trying to do to prove that he's a company guy, to go with the gimmick, to commit to things and all this stuff, like, there's something that just isn't translating. And I just feel bad because it's been going on for so long. And it just feels like kicking a guy while he's down.
Fair enough. All right, let's take a look at the B block. Those are all the teams from the A block. And when we move over to the B block, again, they've only had 2 matches, whereas A has had 3. And
team of the tournament's in this one.
Oh, yeah, by far. Are you referring to Zach and Ryohei?
I was actually talking about David Finley and Hiromu Takahashi. But
as far as entertainment goes, yes. As far as quality of matches,
right.
Oiwa and Sabre are knocking it out of the park. But okay, I see what you mean. As far as entertainment goes, that is the case. And those are the teams on 4 points. So they're the first 2 we're going to talk about here. So to take a look at this block here, Sabre and Oiwa. They opened their tournament with a win over Callum Newman and Great O'Khan. Really good second half to that match once it got rolling. Newman still very much being the heel here. And there was a nice finish of Oiwa hitting a German suplex into a jackknife pin from Zach. And
so
that was really cool. Very smooth, very well executed. It was a nice win for the TMDK squad. Then they moved into night 5 where they wrestled one of the best matches of the tournament so far and might end up being the best match of the tournament overall.
That was night 4, by the way.
That was night 4. You're right. Oiwa and
it was Zach and Oiwa versus Uemura.
Uemura and Shota Umino. And of course, Oiwa and Uemura from generally the same class. And then Shota's not too far away. Shota's a little older than those guys as far as his wrestling career goes. Maybe not on the calendar, but Shota started a little bit earlier than them. And Shota and O'Khan and Wato were more in the same. I mean, and Narita. That was with that group with Kitamura. And whereas the next batch was kind of Uemura and Oiwa, a little bit of Fujita at the tail end of that. But that's the kind of class. The thing is, they were all in the dojo around the same time, within a few years of each other. So trainers very similar. The training was probably very similar that they each had. They work very well together. And they've wrestled each other a lot as lions and things like that. So the Oiwa stuff with Uemura was really good. Really good. And there was I
hope they just wrestle each other forever.
There was a really good scramble toward the ends of this one. Oiwa ended up hitting the grip on Shota into a roll-up, and that was the victory again for Sabre and Oiwa. Just terrific stuff on that.
Yeah, Zach and Shota fighting for position in the middle of the ring when Oiwa hits him from behind with the grip. And Zach kind of fumbled the jackknife, but they got it quick enough where it was like, okay, that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, 4 points and the best in-ring performing team in the tournament, although Uemura and Umino, a very close second. They're having a terrific tournament as well in-ring. The other team that is 2-0 is Hiromu Takahashi and David Finlay. Finlay is playing the part of an almost amused partner, and he is taken to using Hiromu as much as an offensive weapon as he is a tag team partner. He's picking up Hiromu and throwing him into opponents, using him as a battering ram, even power bombing him onto opponents. There's just over and over again, Hiromu is taking bumps onto their opponents. He's not thrilled about this.
Into it. He's like complaining, kind of like just like weekly complaining, like, come on.
Come on. Why do we have to do it like this? And they had the big night on night 2 facing Yudo Ice and Oscar. Finlay was very much on in this match. Hiromu and Yudo Ice also very good together. This is when he powerbombed Hiromu from the ring over the top rope onto Oscar outside. Later, Finlay got a blind tag on Hiromu that Yudo Ice didn't see, and Finlay hit a La Magistral off of Yudo Ice covering Hiromu. So Ice covered Hiromu thinking that Hiromu was the legal man. Since he's on all fours covering Hiromu, it gave Finlay a chance to hit Lamahi Straw on him. It was very clever and it worked. It looked good. Very good match. And then they faced El Phantasmo and Tanahashi on night 4. Tana was the Ricky Morton in that one, selling. Not all of this worked 100%, but the finish was Finlay and ELP in a rolling cradle segment. So they were just kind of tangled up and rolling around the ring. And then Hiromu just simply stopped them with Finlay on top. And it worked. He was able to hold on for all 3 seconds. And like I mentioned, Hiromu complains about being a weapon, but not in a way that really means any dissension. And their post-match comment stuff are pretty funny, especially the preview tags where they had lost a preview tag when Ghetto tapped out. And so they're walking up there and they said, "Why'd you quit?" "I didn't quit." "Why'd you quit?" "Well, I didn't quit. There's no way I quit." And they looked at each other and they just said, "Ghetto? Yeah, probably." And so that was the moment there. But they were like, "All right, never mind that. We'll get him tomorrow." They've been a lot of fun to watch.
Finlay looked like he's having the time of his life.
Yeah.
Just running through the crowd, just feel like the big dog in the group, and just, everyone's in on the gag. Everybody's just having fun with this, and he's still brutal. But it's almost like when Fit Finlay was in WWE and he was like a babyface and he kind of had hornswoggle. Like It's very similar to just like that kind of mentality to it. And it's delightful. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term direction. God help me, I've wanted Hiromu to start going in this direction with these guys anyways. But for right now, for this segment of World Tag League, for the little bit of the universe that it occupies, it has taken up all the real estate.
And the other thing just worth mentioning there, Finlay is funny. He's a funny guy. And of course, he shut that off as he was building his heel persona and his more vicious side with the War Dogs, bring belts or bodies, right? That whole thing. Had to go very humorless in order to get himself over as that heel.
Right.
Now that they are softening up that whole thing where the War Dogs are either tweeners or just flat out baby faces again, he hasn't gone back to being goofy. And sometimes Finn Juice could be goofy, but they were a mid-card tag team. I think he understands the spot, and this is a chance for him to kind of let a little bit of that sense of humor out without turning into something silly. And I think he's hitting the correct notes with it, is what I'm saying. Is there are ways to be funny without being goofy, and he's doing it correctly.
It's main eventer energy having a good time with the crowd. It's like, it's that I have built a relationship with you guys for years. You've seen me be a good guy. You've seen me be a bad guy. I'm taking all of that, and we're doing it at a bigger stage, and you guys are along for the ride. And the crowd's like, "Yep, yes, we are. We're here for it."
So the other team, now that we got some one-on-one teams here, Uemura and Umino on 2 points. They're 1-1. Now, they have had the most interesting subplot so far. A little moment here. We're going to talk about it right now. They defeated Tanahashi and El Phantasmo on the first night of block play, and it was a good match. But the more interesting stuff came after the match. Like I said, won the good one. Afterwards, they had the microphone segment. Shota Umino has the microphone. He kneels down at the lion mark. It's like he's going to devote himself to New Japan Pro Wrestling or reaffirm his devotion to New Japan Pro Wrestling. So all 4 guys. You got Tanahashi, you got El Phantasmo, you have Umino, you have Uemura. They're all kneeling by the lion mark in the middle of the room. And Shota says, "Leave Hantai to me," and goes into a deep bow, very humble bow.
Right.
Tanahashi and Phantasmo bow down like they're agreeing to it. Yes, okay, all right. The Hantai is yours.
Well, no.
You know who didn't bow down? Yuya Uemura. Kind of looked over though, like, "You little asshole." And there was a little look on Uemura's face. It was just, and if you think about it, Jeremy, I kind of like this because it was presumptuous of Umino, who is trying to ingratiate himself character-wise, and maybe even a little bit in real life, but trying to it was a very look at me, look how devoted I am moment. And this little thing of Uemura is just like, "I'm in Hantai too. What makes you the number 1 guy now?" And there was a little bit, he didn't bow down. Now, certainly did not turn on anybody, didn't hit anybody, and there was very little dissension hinted at in post-match comments. But I like that they just kind of hung that out there where he's not totally happy about this. It leaves a little bit of a seed of doubt as to whether or not these two are going to be getting along at the end of this tournament. And for Umino to just kind of say that with Uemura sitting right next to him or kneeling right next to him, there's room for either one to be the heel in that scenario, depending on how they want to pull the trigger on it. If they do, I thought that was very interesting.
So there was so much nuance to this thing, and it is far and away the most important development in the entirety of the World Tag League so far.
Yeah, certainly more than who's going to win this thing right now.
Absolutely. So to set the vibe, they're all four of them are kneeling, or they're on their knees in the middle of the blue, right around the line mark in the middle of the ring. And it's almost as if Umino had like that manga anime moment where in the background, everything is like exclamation marks and frenetic energy. And he's just yelling, "Leave Hontai to me." And it's this action moment. And it's clear Yuya had no idea this was coming.
Yeah.
And his reaction was like I'm sorry, what? Like,
yeah.
Do you think maybe we should have talked about this or something like that? But even more curious was that Tanahashi bowed in deference to the request, but he didn't do anything other than clearly look right at Yuya. And he's like, "Well, are you gonna say anything? What say you?"
Yeah.
Like, this is your moment. I'm looking at you. And Yuya just kind of, he doesn't shrink, but he realizes the moment is not his. And everything just kind of pauses and everything's fine. You know, I think Shota and Yuya ended up losing their next match, which sucks, but whatever. They'll bounce back, and they're going to be a factor in this entire tournament. They're going to be a factor for years to come. This is going to be one of those moments that actually creates like the vision point where like we have the fractures in these like groups and Hontai splits into smaller groups and all this stuff. This is the moment. Because when Tanahashi leaves, he's going to leave a legacy to somebody, and somebody ain't going to like it.
So Uemura and Umino are having terrific matches. We mentioned that they wrestled Oiwa and Sabre, and Oiwa and Sabre won that match. Find any matches with TMDK's team or the Uemura Umino team. There are 3 total matches because they've wrestled each other over there, but all of these guys' appearances have been good. Really entertaining stuff and well wrestled. So those are the best matches of the tournament so far. So now we get to go to the polar opposite, which are who's having some of the crummiest matches in the tournament. Well, Sanada and Ren Narita are here, and they are not having the best matches. And Sanada just can't do much anymore and won't, but he just can't really physically. But so Sanada and Narita, Archer and Zayn beat them on night 2 in a match that kind of stunk. The referee timing was off. There was something that the referee needed to not see, and things didn't work out. And it's also a really good thing for wrestlers, Jeremy, that really tall guys are all really stupid, so that low bridge move works every single time ever. Oscar, Lance, Fale, like all you have to do is run at a guy. If he backs up and grabs the top rope, they just go flying over it every single time. And they never learn. It's almost like Nia Jax, Braun Strowman running at a ring post. You know, it never works out. They are the Wile E. Coyotes of pro wrestling, is that they never figure out that that's a cliff right there. Or that they painted the tunnel onto the rock. You know, they never figure it out.
70% of the time it works 100% of the time.
Anyway, clever move, though, to win the match for Zayn and Archer. And we're going to get to that when we talk about Zayn and Archer, but on Sanada for the win. So they start off 0-1. Night 4, Narita and Sanada did a bunch of house torture shenanigans, and they beat Yuya. They beat Yudo Ice and Oscar. I started saying Yuya Uemura again. Yudo Ice and Oscar. The chemistry in this match was not great. The ref bumps were bad. This is just a swing and miss. I understand that a lot of this is a math equation, but Sonata and Narita, to make the points work and to make it dramatic on the last day, but having these guys make Ice and Oscar 0-2, not these guys, that guy, Sonata. Ren can wrestle, but he's not having a great tournament so far right here. But
I mean,
I hated the fact that the Knockout Brothers lost that match. Hated it. Hated it.
It was incredibly contrived. And by contrived, everybody, I'm going to explain this to you. In that Ren Narita and Sonata match, Oscar, after Yudo Ice had taken a low blow nut shot, was pinned by Ren after taking whiskey from Kanemaru, a guitar shot by Sonata, and then a Hell's Guillotine by Ren Narita. This was Hikuleo energy all over.
Yeah, and also I just want to add another thing. Another one where the ref barely gets brushed up against and he's shot dead, just laid in the corner like he's unconscious. They just don't bother to even make these things look believable. And it takes the crowd totally out of it because they see a guy, they see Marty Asami or a Red Shoes or something like that get nudged a little bit and they collapse in the corner dramatically so that there can be 10 minutes of House of Torture bullcrap. And it just takes them out of it because everyone knows it's stupid and silly. And it just comes off so flat. It gets nobody over. And this is another example that's just not working. They're bad at this.
The thing I will say, though, is that they are... Who are we talking about? Are we talking about Yudo Ice and Oscar, or are we talking about Ren Narita?
Yeah, Ice and Oscar. Well, no, we're talking
about Ren Narita and Sonata.
Sonata, but the Ice and Oscar match.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to those two. This match wasn't good. It was all to fill out the math, and they're not even the top House of Torture team in the equation. If one of them is going to advance, it's going to be Evil and Don Fale. There's too much talent in this division for these guys to be anything but spoilers. And looking at what they've got going forward, I definitely see some spoiler material going on for them.
All right. Well, we're done with them.
They're spoiling the tournament.
Yeah, they're 1-1. Another team 1-1 is Monster Sauce. That's Lance Archer and Alex Zane. So
babyface Monster Sauce.
Yeah, they are in this one. And they have a move that's pretty cool. Of course, Lance Archer's finisher is the blackout. Well, he's doing that where he puts the blackout on Alex Zane and throws Zane down on the opponent, which looks pretty devastating. And
it's like a senton. He throws him into a senton.
Yeah, big senton off of Archer's shoulders onto the opponent there. But so they won their first match, I mentioned, against Sonata and Narita. And then they lost on night 4, though, when Jacob Austin Young tripped Zane when he came off the ropes. That led to Zane getting the double stomp from Newman. This was kind of a key moment to me here, Jeremy. We've talked for a while about what's going on with United Empire. Callum Newman, very heelish, no question about that. Seems like he is about ready to throw the whole thing away because part of what he said at the beginning was, look, if we're not successful in this tournament, there's no point in United Empire continuing. So they became one of the teams. This team is either going to do very, very well, and that's going to be the story that they pulled their stuff together, or they're going to stink on ice and fall all apart. And those were the two, right? This team isn't going to go 4-4, so to speak, or whatever. When I was looking at this, though, this is a departure for United Empire. Throughout the history of the faction, going all the way back to Ospreay and Jeff Cobb and Henare and Okan, they are at ringside for one another's matches. They don't interfere. Well, this time, Jacob Austin Young did indeed interfere. It is an Empire departure, something they have not done before. The action of the match was fine, but I did think that part was interesting, that United Empire did that.
That's a nice pull.
Yeah. Just something intriguing about that. So Monster Sauce 1-1. And then Newman and Okan also 1-1. I mentioned that the Zane and Archer match with the trip, they lost on night one of their block, night 2 overall, to Saber Noiwa in a pretty good match. We've mentioned both those matches. After the loss, Newman walked out alone on that one. Just no team spirit on that one. He just kind of stomped out. But there hasn't been a lot of unity, but no real blow-ups as of yet. And not a lot of that in the post-match comments either. In fact, I think after their loss, they didn't do post-match comments. So they're waiting on that one for a little bit later to pull triggers.
We've talked about it over and over and over again. This isn't their time now, but they're telling you everything that they need to tell you, that these aren't the good dudes that they were. Like, the losses and the abandonment and everything has had an effect on the mentality of Callum Newman, and people like Jacob Austin Young are following his lead. And Great O'Con, kind of not sure where he stands in all of this.
You know, playing it close to the vest. We don't know what O'Con's thinking.
Yeah.
So we have two teams on 0 points, and one of them is the tag team champions, Yuya Ice and Oscar. This puzzles me. I did not like them losing to Finlay and Hiromu at all either, by the way. Didn't like that. The match was good, but they should have won it. And but I do hope they go on a winning streak next there. But yeah, that's Ice and Oscar. And Tanahashi and ELP. ELP is carrying this team to decent matches. Uemura and Umino gave them a terrific one. But they aren't really here to contend. So this is all so that Tanahashi can tour these towns and see everybody won last time. And, of course, this was supposed to be the team last year, but ELP had his cancer scare and had some surgery, all that kind of stuff that we all know about now. But so this is the chance to do the team that they meant to do last year. And it's a chance to farewell to Tanahashi.
Yeah, I mean, Tanahashi doing the victory lap on this tournament. No one expects him to win it. No one expects anything. The match is set. He's main eventing the Tokyo Dome. This is really just a courtesy to everybody. It's like, hey, we're gonna get this in there. I'm gonna get in the ring with Finlay one last time before we go. That kind of thing. And then, Yuya Ice and Oscar, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. I think that if you still needed 5 wins and 2 losses to get in, that these guys could, squeeze in at the very last night kind of thing. I think their last match is against Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura, which doesn't bode well for Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura. But if you think about the fact that you get their 2 losses out of the way early, and then they go the rest of the way, they could easily go 5-2 and get into the tournament. And I'd rather they lose early and then proceed to just get their shit together, whatever mentality you want to describe, but then just go on a run. It's this is the time for them to go on a run and look really, really strong and, potentially win the whole thing. But any of the teams that they lost to then claim a challenge. We're hey, no, you still have it. We still have a marker on you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, that's one of the more intriguing ones. Let's say I'm looking at that. That's Saber and Oiwa will be wrestling Archer and Zayn on the very last day.
Yeah.
Who else? Ice and Oscar against Shota
Tanahashi
and Yuya
versus Narita and Sonata. That's whatever. And then O'Con and Newman versus Finlay and Takahashi. I can see that being a spoiler for Finlay and Takahashi, especially Newman getting something over on Finlay at this point.
Well, like we mentioned, we're going to get a lot of information in the next week because 5 shows are coming up. And so when we reconvene, what that's going to be 5 tournament matches for each team by the time we come back.
It's going to be December when we convene, Steven.
Yes, indeed. So Friday, they are going to Aomori at the Kakuhiro Group Athletic Stadium. And the main event of that one on Friday, El Phantasmo and Tanahashi against the Knockout Brothers. We will see if that winning streak begins for the tag team champions. Yeah. Saturday, they head north. This is extreme north on Honshu, the main island in Japan, the same island that has Tokyo and Osaka and all that. So they're almost up in Hokkaido, but not quite. Saturday in Mutsu, it's Kid and Tsuji versus Bolton and Yano as the top match, plus Bishamon versus Ishikawa and Desperado, which I think could be a sleeper for a really excellent match. Sunday, Akita. So we're doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday is Akita, a little bit further south. B block, Oiwa and Saber against Tanahashi and Phantasmo. Makes sense to have Tanahashi in the main events for these farewells to these towns. And then Monday is a travel day because they have a long trip back down south to Yamanashi. So they're spending this weekend doing a little loop up in the very northern part of the island. Monday is a travel day because Tuesday, Yamanashi, they're back closer to Tokyo. And that's going to be Ishikawa and Desperado versus Kid and Tsuji in an intriguing one, plus Maloney and Shingo against Kojima and Taiichi. Wednesday, they move a little further south, and that's not a coincidence. We're heading toward Osaka. That's what's happening. We're heading toward Osaka. Wednesday, Shizuoka. Knockout Brothers versus Oiwa and Sabre, which I'm looking forward to that match. I think the Zack against those guys intrigues me. Yeah. Plus, Uemura and Umino against Hiromu and Finlay. So those are two of the more entertaining teams in the entire tournament. Wednesday in Shizuoka could be a real banger of a show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some of these matchups that are coming out because there are some really good work rate teams, and we've gotten a couple of these matchups already, including like the Shota Yuya and versus TMDK, that have really just been fantastic. And you once again just remember every time that Shota and Zack get in the ring together, it's really good. Sometimes it doesn't rise to the level of the moment, but it's still really good. And then Ryohei and Yuya, like they're fantastic. So, once you separate those two teams and put them with other good work rate teams, man, it's just there are some riches hidden within this tournament, and I'm so happy that it's much better than the Super Junior Tag League.
Yeah. So, could you tell us a little bit, Jeremy, before we go here? And we're going to keep this fairly short for the holiday show. Could you talk a little bit about what Yo managed to accomplish last week with his sit-in? He does indeed have his Wrestle Kingdom match. It is of a stipulation I'm not sure I've ever heard of before, at least in New Japan. It's something different. It's certainly an all-skate to get a lot of people on the card. Could you tell us a little bit about what they have planned?
So after Yo did his sit-in, Tsugabayashi gave him the thumbs up, and then immediately after our show went off the air, New Japan announced that there was indeed going to be a match, and it is going to be a fusion of a Rambo and a Gauntlet Never six-man openweight title match in which teams of three will come out, and Yo, Master Wato, and Yano will be defending the titles. And if any member of the team is either pinned, counted out, or thrown over the top rope, the entirety of the team will be eliminated from the match. And there shall be one team left of three. I think this is a formula for the Wato, Yo, and Yano team to lose their titles in hilarious fashion. But, when you demand something at a big show, more than likely there comes a cost.
And this is, again, a way to get people on the card. This show is sold out as it is right now, and they're going to add more seats, and those seats are probably going to be sold out too. So
you do 4 teams, 12 people. You do 5 teams, 15, 18, 21. All of a sudden, everybody who's like worked pardon my French here, the shittiest fucking tours through this entire year get a reward and get to be on this card, which honestly, yeah, you do deserve to be on the card when you've worked this hard. And it may be Tanahashi that packed the dome, but these guys were on the card with him.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for him, and I think it's a smart move, just business wise, to get those guys in there and to and you said it best, just reward these guys for some of the slog that they've had to endure over the last year. And,
like,
and some really weak
shows, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we watch, so you don't have to. But yeah. Anyway, that's what's coming up this week, folks. A lot of tag team action coming up. I don't think there's a singles match all week because even the first matches on the card are previews for the next block.
Not really. Save all those matches for Tokyo.
Yeah, and there will be some once we get to things like the semifinals and the finals. They'll be doing all that, and we'll be here to preview them when they are announced.
So keep enjoying your Thanksgiving, everybody.
Absolutely. So we're going to sign off for now. We'll be back live next week, regular time slot, just like we're here in our regular time slot today. And so feel free to join us. Send in your questions, your comments. I put my email address at ringsidereplay@gmail.com. You can always email me there if you have comments or questions. I'm happy to read those. And we'll get you back on the air when we're back here live as normal. It's December already. Everything's happening so quickly.
If you have any questions for me, just ask Steven and he'll get it back. I'm not giving you my email.
Not giving out his email. I've got one from my other site, my history.
That's fine. I'm just messing around.
Yeah, all right. A lot of good things to come from Speaking of Strong Style in 2026. So, but there is a very important Wrestle Kingdom show to come, and we're going to be here to cover it. Jeremy is going to be there live in person. So we're going to have this whole thing covered for you, and we hope you join us. Don't forget about Power Bombshell Sunday at 1 p.m., Dynamite Show, all the great programming here on the Fight Game Media Network. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Bye.